Week 3 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for this week. The first guy, Giancarlo Stanton of the New York Yankees. So Stanton, he's got off to a slow start this season here after last season having a monster year with 35 homers, 97 RBIs with a 273 average. So far this year, he had 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 242 average, and a 246 on base. So far this season, he's just free swinging and swinging at everything is Stanton. But we know as long as he stays healthy, every season he's a 30 to 40 home run power type of hitter. And I think he's going to get things going. And last night we saw him started up a little, 2 for 3 with a homer and 3 RBI. So over the last few games here for Stanton, April 21st, at the Tigers 0 for 4. April 22nd versus Cleveland 1 for 4. April 23rd versus Cleveland 0 for 4. April 26th versus Baltimore 2 for 4 with an RBI. And April 27th, like I mentioned last night, 2 for 3 with a homer and 3 RBI. So Stanton, we know he's a great hitter in terms of power and RBI production. And even last season, hitting in the 270 was pretty surprising. After the couple seasons before that, his average was lower than that. So right now he's in a great lineup with the Yankees. They're starting to get things going and starting to hit the ball. And no doubt about it, he's a big part of this offense. So right now, if you could get him on a little bit of a discount before he really gets going and gets heating up, is Stanton. This is the time to do it because once he goes on a tear, he could carry fantasy teams for a month on end here, is Stanton, with the power. And right now, while he's not doing that really, you go get him before the weather warms up and he gets in a groove. The next hit I look to buy low this week is Carlos Correa of the Minnesota Twins, to the prize free agent signing, surprisingly going to Minnesota in the offseason on a short-term deal. And so far, he's done nothing, is Correa. 10 for 60, 1 home run, 3 RBI, 6 runs scored, a 167 batting average, and a 254 on base. So right there, those stats are poor here for Correa, no doubt about it. After last season, had a solid year, 26 and 92 with a 280 average. But he's too good of a player not to get things going. And right now, while he's struggling mightily, this is a perfect time to buy him on a discount because he's another guy. Once he gets going, he could carry a fantasy team for weeks on end as well. The last few games here for Correa, April 21st at Kansas City, 1 for 4. April 22nd versus the White Sox, 1 for 4 with a rib. April 23rd versus the White Sox, 0 for 2 with a run. April 26th versus Detroit, 0 for 4. And April 27th versus Detroit, 0 for 4. But hey, this Minnesota Twin team, they're on fire right now, winning 7 games in a row. And Correa, he pretty much hasn't done anything. So if he gets going, he's going to be big time for fantasy owners and obviously big time for the Minnesota Twins. Maybe it's taken him some time to adjust, even though he did stay in the American League this offseason here. But right now, if you could go get him, you go out there and get him. Shortstop's a weak position in fantasy baseball. And right now, this guy's too good to be hitting way below the Mendoza line. And he's going to get going. I know he will. So right now, he's a perfect buy low candidate because we know the capabilities of Correa after we see him do it season after season. Next hit is Jose Abreu of the Chicago White Sox. So Abreu, another guy, former MVP. And so far this season here, he hasn't done anything. 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 203 batting average, and a 288 on base. So last season, he had a monster year once again, 30 and 117. And he's the middle and the heart of the lineup here for this White Sox team. And this White Sox team definitely has struggled so far in the early going here, losing a lot of ball games this season here where you didn't think they would. So right now, Abreu, once he gets going as well, he's another player that's going to be a star for your fantasy team. So the last few games here for Abreu, April 21st at Cleveland, 1 for 4. April 22nd in Minnesota, 0 for 3. April 23rd in Minnesota, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. April 24th in Minnesota, 1 for 3. April 26th versus Kansas City, 1 for 4. And April 27th versus Kansas City, 0 for 4. So right here, he just can't get on base right now. He can't hit the baseball. He's not showing power, but he's too good of a player, and he's more of a second-half hitter as well, Abreu, where he has those big months in July and August, it seems like. So right here, if you could go get him on a discount, this is a perfect time to do it with his batting average way down there and him just not even showing power as well with only 2 home runs so far in the first few weeks of the season here. So go out there and get Abreu because he's a second-half hitter and he's too good to be hitting this poorly. The next guy's Matt Chapman of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Chapman last season, numbers weren't all that great in terms of batting average, hitting 210, but he still had 27 homers, 72 RBIs, and so far this season, similar type of things here with his new team. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 217 average, and a 280 on base. So right here, he's another hitter that's too good to be hitting this low. I know last season it was low for him, the 210 average, and he struck out tons of times, 202 times striking out last year. But this year, he's in a better lineup in Toronto with a lot of big hitters, a lot of protection in the lineup, and he's a guy that's batting 5th to 7th range here for this Blue Jay team. So the last few games here for Chapman, April 22nd in Houston, 1 for 4 with an RBI. April 23rd at Houston, 1 for 4. April 24th at Houston, 0 for 5. April 25th versus Boston, 1 for 4 with a homer and a rib. April 26th versus Boston, 0 for 5. And April 27th versus Boston, 0 for 3. So right here, Matt Chapman, I think he's going to get things going. He's still acclimating with his new team. And like I mentioned, there's so many big hitters in this lineup. Bichette, Springer, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Gavin Biggio, a lot of guys in this lineup that can hit the baseball, and he's going to get a lot of pitches. I think Chapman, once he gets in a groove here, he's going to have a better season than last year, and no matter what, he still has 25 to 30 home run potential, and right now, while he hasn't done much, he's a perfect buy low hitter this week, and the 5th and final hitter I've looked to buy low this week is Jordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros. So Alvarez, we know he's a monster power hitter, and he's a guy that could drive in a lot of runs as well. Last season, 33 and 104 with a 277 average. And so far this season, we've seen good signs out of him, but he's still not hitting to full potential. 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 234 average, and a 333 on base. So he's always a good guy that prides himself with a good eye at the plate, has a pretty decent on-base percentage, and so far that's the plus for him, and also only striking out 8 times in 47 at-bats, so it looks like he's cutting down a bit on his strikeouts so far this season. But right now, he hasn't really got anything going until the last 2 games here is Alvarez, and he's another guy that can break out at any time. He plays in a good hitters ballpark. He plays in a division where there's a lot of good hitting ballparks as well, besides maybe Seattle over there in the AL West. So the last few games here for Alvarez, April 22nd versus Toronto, 0 for 4. April 23rd versus Toronto, 0 for 4. April 24th versus Toronto, 1 for 5. April 25th at Texas, 1 for 4 with a homer and an RBI. April 26th at Texas, 2 for 3 with a run. And April 27th at Texas, 2 for 2 with a run. So right now, the last 3 games, he's starting to kick it into gear a little bit here is Alvarez. But still, I would make an offer for him because this guy's got big-time power. He was a former top prospect for a reason, and we've seen him produce over the last few seasons. So go out there and get Alvarez because he's another guy that could be big-time for fantasy owners as the season goes on. So that's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for here for week 3 of the fantasy baseball season.